historical context of it was. Like,
Yeah, yeah. I was just talking with my students in my seminar about Hemingway's A Farewell to Arms, this great novel about this war, this First World War. And, he has that famous moment when the main character, Frederick Henry, thinks that abstract words like glory and honor and sacrifice, mean nothing anymore. You can't sort of figure out what they mean. And he says, he uses this great word, he says, they're obscene next to the concrete names of villages and roads. And that seems like a terrible loss, right? It seems, okay, well, he's throwing up his hands. He's saying, what does it all mean anymore? I don't know. All I have is the concrete, the now. But as you say, sure, it is a loss, but it's something else as well. It's a kind of gain. It's saying, okay, well, let's look at our own hands. Let's see what we have. Let's look at the particular.
yeah, we need to, and in a sense, it's like we need to move beyond certain things at some point. It's more than like these abstract things, like you said, glory, honor. Ultimately, it comes down to like what is actually being fought for here. It reminds me of I went to this exhibit at the New Museum a few weeks ago. They call it Here and Elsewhere. It's the work of a lot of generally Palestinian, Israeli.
Oh, I haven't seen it. I've heard about it, though.
It's really fascinating.
Great.
But one thing that, a really prevalent theme, something you don't normally see in museums that was there was a heavy presence of maps. They have just like maps being regarded as a form of art.
Wow.
And then like topographical watercolors and whatnot. And it really starts to lose its meaning after a while. You've seen the same country, but it's just like broad strokes. And when we do consider these larger things, we lose the sense of clarity.
Yeah.
Of just like little events that mean so much more.
That sounds fascinating. I mean, especially, thinking about how to make a viewer look at a map differently about an area of the world that's, the boundaries of which are contested. That sounds really powerful.
They really become like, after a while, seeing enough maps, you're like, is this Syria or is this just like the pink dot on a map?
Yeah, right, yeah.
But yeah, and there's another thing in here. You use fall, October, but most people love to use October as like, oh, it's about to be the time of death. It's like winter's soon to be here. But you've turned it into a very tender moment.
It's both. I mean, I would say October seems to use me more than I use it because I can't really get away from it. But yeah, right. We're in it now almost. It's that time of year. It's death and life at the same time. It is death that makes the leaves look the way that they do, but it's also death throes. It's this last sort of blazing of life.
It's everything, the sort of vibrancy.
Yeah,
it makes it more scenic, which I think that's really, in my experience with reading at least, that's what makes like war narratives so much more interesting. Like you get a sense that there really is something to lose, which makes all of the characters' actions more urgent, bent on their own sort of moral codes.
Yeah, that's well said.
And also, going back to the image of the mother, she doesn't seem to have changed too much in this.
If it is one, I mean, I see it as a narrative, of a couple. A narrative is a generous word, but this. Oh, you mean her? If she's thinking about voices of boys and they're breaking, that she might be a mother to some of these soldiers. Yeah,
that's what I was figuring.
Maybe. Yeah, I don't know. She's old before her time, but yeah, it's somewhat mysterious to me. Do you know Georg Trakhl's poems?
No,
I love them. Yeah, we talk about them at another time, but they're really. I don't know. This poem to me seems to be, in some senses, an homage to some of his poems. He was a German language poet who wrote during the time of the First World War. Died on the Eastern Front in 1914, so very, very early in the war. But his poems, we talked about Jungian images today. We're talking about archetypes. He would be one I'd recommend. to anyone who might be listening and is interested in those things. Trakl, Trakl. He's a wonderful poet, especially as we get now into October and anyone's in the writing mood. Take out a volume of his poems, and if you have the German, you've got a leg up. But even in translation, they're wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Also, I've been curious this whole time about your writing process.
Oh, sure.
So can you tell me a little bit about like when you write? How is there anything that particularly inspires you? Do you have a schedule or?
No, I don't have a schedule. The people who know me, the people who are close to me in my life, can answer that question with much more angrily than I. I don't have a schedule, and it just whenever something needs to happen, it'll try to find a way to allow it to happen. I guess I've been writing for just long enough to know that the process does change over time.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it'd be more helpful to talk about some of those longer pieces. If I'm working on something that's long, that Sarajevo piece is sort of middle length for me. I've done other things that are longer but still lyric pieces. Those seem to assemble themselves over time. So I'll maybe write it. I'll always think that I've done a draft of it in sort of a sitting. I'll force myself to do it, but of course I'll look at it again the next day. You know how a piece can fall apart. Stanley Kunin said that one time. So you think it's good, you leave it out in the air, and then you wake up the next day and you look at it and it's just fallen apart. Something has happened. It's terrible. So those kind of pull themselves together in some ways. The poem sometimes has a way of composing itself over the course of months and sometimes years. Yeah, even a poem of 4 pages can do that. And so you try to listen to it. You try to listen to it and see how it's meant to go together, and how you're supposed to sew it up or not sew it up or half sew it up. But no, generally a lot of my I don't think it's ever really happened that a poem has started with an idea or with some philosophical notion that I want to get across. That's going to be a prose very, very soon.
Of course.
Instead, it's going to be normally an image. An image, something that is not going to explain itself, but that just keeps resonating and asking you to say something about it.
So when you have one of these images, do you like to act on it immediately or let it okay.
Oh, right, or let it. We were talking about ripening with Rilke before. When I'm disciplined, it's sometimes just hard. It's so hard to know, isn't it? Right? I mean, sometimes self-discipline means striking your calendar, going up to a cabin somewhere, and writing about the thing that's on your mind. Sometimes discipline means I am not ready to write this thing right now, and I need to wait, and I need to carry it. And it feels like fire in your gut. But I need to carry it until it's ready. I don't know. I have no idea. And I'm wrong more than I'm right, of course. Everybody is. But you just keep trying to listen and see what it's trying to tell you. But no, of course, try to work. It's work. I mean, writing is work. So you do it all the time. And you're not going to make those happy accidents if you're not willing to fail and willing to try, again and again. Yeah.
Very nice. Do you want to read one more piece before we go?
Yeah, absolutely, sure. Let me read. I should have this plucked out. But, why not read one piece? Okay. For the sake of things here, this is the first poem that I published.
I understand this one's won awards as well.
Yeah, this one did. It won the Rattle Poetry Prize in 2008, and I think I wrote it in 2007. I was 24. And it's called Mahler in New York, and it's Gustav Mahler. But sometimes when you write a poem that is a persona poem, it affords you these liberties. The speaker is...
You have the archetype of this person, and you're like, how would they behave in this moment?
Yeah. If I put him in this situation, and it sort of allows you to say things about yourself.
Wouldn't get to say yourself.
Yeah. Anyway, so this is called Mahler in New York, which I've ruined with an introduction now, but